There's the potential for 2 powerful hurricanes in the Atlantic this week, and still a tropical development area for the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. Coming up in this video, we're to talk about some active weather across the area on this Tuesday. We'll look at the rest of the week forecast and then deep dive into the tropics. We have this development area still in the Western Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico to talk about. And not one, but potentially 2 powerful hurricanes developing in the Atlantic. As always, I love to hear from you guys. Appreciate our subscribers who drop a comment below. Please do so. Let me know what's going on in your area and what the weather has been like. As you guys can see, we have gotten back our satellite data feed here on the weather computer. The hub of that data feed is actually located in Asheville, North Carolina, one of the hardest hit areas from Hurricane Helene. So listen, we can do without some satellite data for a time, but it's nice to see it back up. You'll see a couple of jumps as the data is beginning to be ingested back into the system. Still no lightning data as of yet, but again, we'll deal with that considering what our friends in North Carolina are dealing with, and our thoughts are still out there with our friends who are still impacted by Helene. So what do you say we get started on this Tuesday afternoon with kind of just what's happening right now in the western side of the Caribbean? Now again, we have our development area, 40% chance. I'm going to get into that a lot more coming up when we talk about the tropics and the evolution. But in the short term, again, on the eastern side of the Central American gyre, which is a very broad area of rotation across Central America and the Yucatan this time of the year, we are starting to see that evolution of that monsoonal trough lifting up to the north, and that's going to promote some rain getting going. And in this area and north and west, eventually down the road is where we could see a spin up and a tropical system develop. But in the short term, it's going to try and bring some rain across portions of Jamaica. You can see that moisture coming in right now for our friends in Kingston and Ocho Rios, Montego Bay, Negril, Saint-Lamar, Mandeville. Again, not everyone's going to get it, and some of this will just be some cloud coverage, but the opportunity to get some tropical downpours developing across the area as well. And again, just because you see 0 lightning strikes doesn't mean there isn't any or won't develop. Again, just not getting that data coming into the system. You can clearly see this spin, and some of that's even developing over the Cayman Islands as we speak right now. So nice little broad spin. Again, a relatively cloudy day there. Actually got a photo from my friend Selena from the Georgetown area of Grand Cayman. You can clearly see the darker clouds there. And again, just kind of a grayer start to the day in the morning hours of this Tuesday. And again, cloud coverage and the opportunity for some showers across the Caymans as we roll through not only today, but for the next several days. Again, the Northwest Caribbean is going to be wet. Same thing for Cuba. We're getting some healthy showers and storms developing across the Yucatan and Belize. Had a commenter yesterday in Belize said they had nearly 3 inches of rain. So quiet mornings, but thunderstorms developing in the afternoon, all the way from Cancun and Cozumel back towards Chetumal, San Pedro, Belize City, Dan Griga area, San Ignacio, all kind of developing and moving off to the south and to the west. And again, this is going to be a very active area. Now look, we're going to have ourselves a weak system in the eastern Pacific, which could feed in even more moisture, and I'll break that down coming up. But again, for Central America all the way down to Panama, this is going to be a very wet forecast, and eventually again, as this system moves up north and west, the opportunity for some tropical development as well. Let's go east first. We'll get back over to our friends in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, where we have a few isolated showers developing today. Nothing outrageous, but we're going to try and pop off a few more showers and maybe a rumble of thunder. Punta Cana, Santo Domingo, Barcelona, Port-au-Prince, Lacaille, all with an isolated shower chance for today. Nothing outrageous, but we'll see a few. Same situation for our friends in the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, trying to get a couple of showers developing today. I want you to notice that the movement is from the northeast to the southwest. When I throw on the visible satellite imagery, and again, there'll be a couple of hiccups here and there as the data is beginning to come back in, you'll see that we have a bit of a northeast component to the breeze trying to spark off some showers. So still a possibility, especially in the southwest side of the island, Ponce West, and then for portions of St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, and Vieques and Culebra and the British Virgin Islands as well. We're going to try and pick up a little bit more moisture in the Lesser Antilles in general. And again, a couple of spots have had some decent rain for today. There is a northeast breeze, so it is kicking up a little bit of swells on the western side. And again, for places like Anguilla, in Antigua and Barbuda, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Bart's, St. Kitts and Nevis and Montserrat. A couple of isolated showers developing, trying to not get that white flash to be too prominent here, guys. Now you get a little bit farther south, and a few more showers have developed today. You see those brighter whites? So Dominica, south of Martinique towards St. Lucia, portions of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados again, all with some heavier rain, especially again the southern sides of the islands. As this northeast wind has come in, the rain has developed on the central side of the island and then pushing south and west. So in general, for these areas, southern locations, slightly higher chance for rain today, slightly higher chance for heavier rainfall totals. You live in these areas, let me know how it's been going on this Tuesday afternoon. And we'll see a few spotty showers, again, localized for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. You can see the thicker white clouds there over the Trinidad area. Same thing for Tobago. Again, a few scattered showers and an isolated rumble of thunder. Can't rule out pockets of heavier rain. Look, that is an opportunity. I'm back over to the enhanced satellite imagery here. And again, it's not as prominent, but where you see that enhanced imagery flare up some cloud covers, that's going to be some of your heavier rain, which is much more isolated in nature today, but there are still some spots. Same situation for Nueva Esparta. Not as much rain for today by the ABC Islands, but trying to get a couple of showers in an isolated variety. Back on over to our friends in the Bahamas for today. It's been a relatively quiet forecast across the area. It's been beautiful weather. Again, I mentioned it in yesterday's video. We'll see if some of the moisture on the far northeast side of the Central American gyre, as this system tries to spin up, could kick off a little bit more rain for the Bahamas in general the next several days. That would include the Turks and the Caicos. At this point in time, things are still going to be isolated in nature, and because of that, you get these sunsets. Take a look at this shot from Egg Island there. That is on the northern side of Eleuthera, just off the coast of Eleuthera from Craig Russell. What a beautiful shot just near Spanish Wells, if you know where that is. I mean, come on. Who would want to leave that ever, right? Craig, I appreciate you sending in that video, that picture, and we'll wrap it up with Sherry from Galveston, Texas, showing you the Gulf Coast with another beautiful shot, the sun shining right off of that almost glass water. So appreciate our friends across the Meteo Mundo weather community and across the Caribbean and the Bahamas and Gulf of Mexico for sending in those photos. I love it. Friends, as we get into the forecast, thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo as well. If you want these daily updates, I appreciate that. Click that subscribe button for me. Like this video. Share this with your family and friends. Anyone who think you get a little bit something out of it, I appreciate it. And again, appreciate you guys finding ways to support the channel as well via the memberships, the super thanks. You can also find some ways in the description below as well. Okay, let's get back over to the forecast. And again, we're going to first of all talk about what's going to be happening in the next few days, go island by island, and then deep dive into the tropics. Now, obviously, the forecast here in the Northwest Caribbean is going to be impacted by this potential development area. I want you to notice how basically broad and elongated this potential development region is from the National Hurricane Center. It still sits at just 40%, and there is a very high likelihood that we may not get development until about this time next week, if it even happens. This is going to be a very broad, disorganized area of showers and storms. We're still going to have some squalls. We're still going to have some heavy rain. But as far as this evolving into a depression or a storm or anything more than that, I think it's going to take its sweet time, and it's a very complicated and tricky forecast, and we'll break that down. But in the short term, over the next several days, again, more rain will be moving into the Caribbean coastline of Central America, of Quintana Roo, Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, Jamaica, maybe as far east as Haiti, certainly Cuba, and again, portions of the Bahamas as well. You do have this new tropical depression, which is just formed in the East Pacific. For them, that is 11E. Now, this is going to be drifting north and then into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. So guess what? Now you have yet another spin to talk about how this all evolves. And we'll break that down coming up. But you get the idea. It's going to be a wet, and then eventually it's going to be a very complicated forecast when we're talking about a few areas of potential tropical development. But again, heavy rainfall is going to be likely in these areas. So let's break this down, and then we're going to go island by island for us here. Again, in the short term, in our area outside the Pacific, not expecting this to become a depression or a storm in the next 3 days. But it will be a larger area of rain that will continue to track north and west. Now, there will be better rain chances for places like Jamaica and eastern Cuba and Haiti, but the better rain chances will be farther west. So I'm still expecting More scattered rain than anything for Kingston and Portmore and Spanish Town and Montego Bay, Negril, all areas of Jamaica. Still could be some nice tropical downpours. Heavier rain trying to help break the heat a little bit. But as far as just really getting into that higher opportunity for some really widespread rain, I think it's just west of you guys. It's going to kick up the sea conditions, so keep an eye out for that as well. But you can clearly see here, this begin to kind of just spiral in to places like Roatan and Belize City and Chechemal, Tulum, Cancun, Cozumel, Grand Cayman, the western side of Cuba. And then obviously, this system coming north out of the East Pacific is going to keep Mexico and the Yucatan in general very wet. Very heavy rainfall is likely in these areas. Now, as far as this trying to spin in a little bit more rain into the Bahamas, I think that's a possibility. I've upped the rain chance slightly overall, but I'm still not expecting there to be very organized activity for Walker's Key and Grand Bahama, and the Abacos and Bimini and Eleuthera, New Providence and Andros and Eleuthera south towards Cat Island, Long Island, Exuma, and the Acklins. Slightly higher rain chances by the end of the week, and we'll see the same for the Turks and the Caicos as well. Going to get a little bit more localized rain to develop over Haiti and the Dominican Republic, especially starting tomorrow, but maybe even a little bit later Thursday, Friday. I don't have a very high chance for rain for Santiago de los Caballeros and Santo Domingo and Puerto Plata, but slightly higher. Again, help cool things off a little bit as well. And that's about the same scenario for Puerto Rico in the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands. Again, we still have this northerly component to the wind. Winds are actually a little bit more out of the northeast than anything else. There's still some heat advisories during the day and a few showers to help cool things off, but nothing that's going to be fairly organized here. Rain chances will continue to be slightly higher, a little bit farther off towards the east. So we're looking at the Lesser Antilles in general, from Anguilla to Barbuda and Antigua and South, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin, all the areas included here, Dominica, Martinique. Slightly higher chances the next couple days, might fade just a little bit here towards the weekend. Then we'll switch on over to the GFS model here, just to again pick up what's going on in the Windward Islands. So give me just 1 second. Let me loop that up. And again, the bottom line is you're going to see spotty rain. Now again, pockets of heavier rain in a few isolated areas are absolutely possible. We do have a trough coming into the area, which is just a little bit more lift in the atmosphere, right? It's not a tropical wave, but it is at the mid levels going to provide more lift and better rain chances overall. And again, also kick up sea conditions a bit with a little bit stronger northeast wind. So here's the rain chances island by island. In the Bahamas, again, I'm upticking the rain slightly all the way through Friday, and especially in the northwest Bahamas, but the central and southeast Bahamas will have a slightly better chance as well. Turks and Caicos, 20% chance the next few days, 30 on Friday. Nothing outrageous, but a few showers. Cuba's rain chances will continue to be quite high, 70 to 80% each day. Cayman Islands, best chance will probably be tomorrow and Thursday, and then we'll see the evolution of this system. If it pulls far enough north and west quick enough, rain chances should begin to come back down on Friday. Belize City's rain chances will stay high. I might be underdoing it a bit at 60%, but again, it's going to come with the opportunity for some heavy rain each and every day across Belize and Guatemala and Honduras and Nicaragua and areas south, and that of course includes going north into the Yucatan for Cancun and Cozumel, where rain chances are high. Jamaica's rain chances again are relatively decent the next few days, and again, as that system pulls north and west and takes some of the moisture with it, lower rain chances there. It's scattered, as I mentioned, for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Same thing for Puerto Rico. Again, we'll get some rain, but don't expect it to be island-wide. Don't expect it to be very widespread. U.S. and British Virgin Islands, my friends there, in about the same boat. Bermuda's rain chances are decent the next few days. Little mid-level low spinning near the island could provide a few showers. Anguilla's rain chances go up Thursday, and then into Friday. Same thing for St. Kitts and Nevis, but even tomorrow it's a 40% chance, but how about that 60 for Anguilla on Thursday? Same scenario for Antigua and Barbuda, and actually even higher on Friday, so relatively wet there on the northeast side of the island chain. Montserrat, Guadeloupe, good rain chances overall. Again, relatively speaking, we're pushing them slightly higher towards the end of the week. So Dominica goes from a 40% chance tomorrow, 50 Thursday, 60 on Friday. Martinique's rain chances are looking pretty darn good as well. Again, as long as we have the northeast wind, central and the southern sides of that particular island, will have better rain chances than the northern side. Doesn't mean the north coast won't get some rain, but they'll develop over the north coast and probably get a little bit heavier as they push south and west. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a 40 to a 50% shot. Still could see some heavier rain across Barbados the next few days, just keeping it at that broad brush 50% chance. Grenada's about the same situation. Trinidad and Tobago, again, could be an uptick here or there. Suriname, Guyana's rain chances are slightly higher the next couple days, but still 50% chance on Friday. And again, isolated rain and a few storms for Nueva Esparta and the ABC Islands. Okay, now it's time to get back into the tropics. This has been a very active last few weeks. It's going to continue to stay very active. We are going to start this one with what, again, picking up happening in the Northwest Caribbean in the Gulf of Mexico. So again, short-term, heavy rain, sloppy, wet storm. And ultimately, that's exactly how it might play out. That's exactly what this may end up being. But there is still some signals that we could have a stronger storm. So let's break down the newest information for you on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to loop up the GFS model. We'll take a look at the ensemble members. We'll take a look at the Euro and the GFS ensembles as well. They have somewhat disagreeing solutions, but we'll see how this plays out. Now again, 40% chance from the Hurricane Center. Partly because we may not be talking about potential development until about the day 6 or 7 day time frame right now. But it could remain a sloppy, wet system with just some heavier rain. That would be great. However, there's still at least some signals that we're going to wrap up a storm. Now, there's a couple of questions as we get into the weekend. Again, you can see this on the GFS, the rain beginning to come up through the Northwest Caribbean. We're still going to have that spin in the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. And the question is, do these two ever begin to interact with each other, right? Because the GFS certainly has this rain coming into Florida over the weekend, and you can see that pushing across the state for the weekend ahead as a sloppy, disorganized system. But there's still a chunk of energy here in the western Gulf of Mexico, which could ultimately be the stronger storm, right? And that would be like mid next week. We're talking about next Wednesday, the 8th, or excuse me, next Tuesday, the 8th, and the next Wednesday, the 9th, all right? So there's still the evolution of a very complicated forecast in the Gulf of Mexico here for the week ahead with the two areas of spin that I'm going to be watching out for. Again, there could be an interaction where they merge, both could develop, neither could develop. I think all of those scenarios are quite plausible, and at this point in time, there's nothing to really point a finger at and say, yep, that's going to happen, except for there's more than likely going to be a lot of heavy rainfall across portions of the Gulf Coast, Cuba, the Yucatan, the Cayman Islands, Central America. I think that is one thing that is a near certainty because there's just going to be a lot of tropical moisture that's not moving very quickly. Let's show you the winds here out of this GFS deterministic model. Again, you can clearly see two maximum of winds. One in the Northwest Caribbean in the next couple of days, another evolving in the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. Now for the Cayman Islands and the coastline of Central America and the Yucatan, we could have some fresh breezes, some squalls, 20 to 25 miles an hour. And again, could be slightly higher than that wet forecast, but not at this point in time expecting this to rapidly spin up. There, of course, is an opportunity as we get towards, let's say, Friday, that potentially right here, we see that spin up. But even on the GFS, I'm going to go ahead and let this continue to try and loop up fully here. Even on the GFS, it doesn't really try and bring anything organized even into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, at least in the shorter term. And again, hopefully we get the full run of this. If not, that's okay. We'll look at the ensemble members here. It looks like we're getting about a day at a time, so I'll stall and talk a little bit more. Sometimes this model loads up quickly. And again, these are surface winds, sustained surface winds. So if you see the purples and the pinks, you're beginning to get into 20 mile an hour plus winds. It looks like we're not going to get the full model loop here. Let me just take a look at things here real quick. I do have it. Let me see if I can. Sometimes if you just back this down by a day or two, it likes that and it will then fully load up everything. So let's see. So we've got the 5th trying to come in. Looks like for some reason we're getting cut off here at the 5th. That's okay. We'll look at the winds and other models coming up. But you can see again over the next couple days, nothing quite spins up. Of course, here, what could happen here the next couple days? It's very interesting, no doubt about it. All right, so now let's look at the GFS ensemble members. Again, we were looking at the deterministic, the one plot. Now here are the ensembles. Again, you see a couple of areas of low pressure on the ensembles here. Nothing really through Friday. Now we get into the weekend. So we're talking about more of a Gulf of Mexico development, if anything, for the GFS ensemble members. Now we get into early on Monday and we see a couple, but notice they're still split. Some of them are a little bit closer to the Florida coastline, even a couple of very weak systems into the Bahamas near Cuba, or potentially a little bit stronger system in the western Gulf of Mexico. Now, this is all the way through Monday afternoon, all right? So slow, if anything. That's the word I want to get out for the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf Coast states in this area. Slow if development happens. For the European model, slow if anything develops, but slightly more aggressive. You can see more members of the European model trying to develop a system. I've taken this one out until Tuesday. Still looking like Gulf development compared to Northwest Caribbean. That's the slower progression, but potentially with the European model, a little bit stronger one as well. And again, signals in the Central Gulf, the Eastern Gulf, and potentially over Florida and into the Western Atlantic. Speed would be determining that. There's also, at this point in time, a front that's going to be trying to sneak into the Southeast United States, which could try and push any of these systems a little bit farther back to the south. So instead of going north like Helene did, maybe more of an easterly track. We'll see how that plays out because it all depends on if we even get an area of low pressure. Okay, but this could be a heavy rainmaker, regardless of development for portions of Florida and the Gulf Coast in general, maybe even the Bahamas as well. So let's get back out now to the rest of what's going to be happening in the Atlantic. We have Kirk, which is now a hurricane, I believe. I think it just became a hurricane. Yeah, winds are 75 miles an hour. Kirk has been strengthening very quickly. All right, Kirk is going to become a major hurricane. It is forecast to at least become a Category 3, and you see that. So winds at some point in time are forecast to be 115, and then even up to 120, maybe even slightly higher. Kirk looks very impressive, doesn't it? Again, Category 1 hurricane as we speak, but the great news about Kirk, the fantastic news about Kirk, it continues to be a fish storm. It's going to curve quickly to the north, and then eventually to the north and to the east, staying far away from the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, staying well east of Bermuda as well. It's going to bring some high sea conditions, and some of those swells could make Bermuda eventually as well. But again, Kirk, very powerful storm, more than likely going to be a major hurricane. That is the official forecast. On the heels of Kirk, remember we have Invest. This is 91L. The chance of Invest 91L developing is exceptionally high. As a matter of fact, this time tomorrow, it's not going to shock me if this is a depression or even a named storm. More than likely, this will be Leslie. I don't think the Western Caribbean system develops ahead of this, and this one has an extremely high chance of developing. So you're looking at Leslie. We just don't have it on the board as of yet. Now, Leslie is a slightly higher concerning storm. I mentioned it in yesterday's video as well that the Bermuda High is going to be trying to push off to the south a little bit more and just expand in nature. So a little bit more of a westward tug is possible with that next storm. So let me bring back up, make sure I've got the reflectivity loaded. And I'm going to take this out a little bit in time here. We're going to take a journey on the GFS across the Atlantic to show you what might be happening here. So first of all, and you saw the thumbnail from the video, there is an opportunity, okay, that we get two major hurricanes in the Atlantic from Kirk and from Leslie, okay? Again, it's down the road with Leslie, but you can see if I pause this here, as we get towards the weekend, I think we have the opportunity to have two very powerful storms. Potentially Leslie isn't a major while Kirk is, but I think ultimately both of them have that opportunity. Now on the newest run of the GFS model, this takes an extremely similar track to Kirk. I mean, you can literally see that we're right over Kirk's path, all right? That would be fantastic. The previous model run of the GFS was slightly farther west, but still about 800 miles north and east of the Lesser Antilles. So at this point in time, we've got plenty of wiggle room on the GFS, even if it wants to try and nudge what would be Leslie a little bit farther off towards the west and closer to the Eastern Caribbean. However, the European model is a little bit more concerning, right? This is Kirk, and you're going to see Kirk move north. This is the one that's going to be Leslie. And notice it's taking a little bit farther south track, okay? Now, the cluster of the ensembles is still north and east of the islands, but it's a little bit closer. And if you look at the far western ensemble members here of the European model, it gets a little bit closer to the Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. It's just something to keep an eye on, right? Time frame that we're looking at here, we're getting into early next week. This is Tuesday, now into Wednesday, and then Thursday. Plenty of time to watch. Most of the European ensembles have that recurve north far enough east from the Lesser Antilles to not have it be a big concern, but it is slightly farther west than the European. And again, if you look back into the Gulf of Mexico, you'll see the evolution. So again, this is Kirk, fish storm, good news. Here comes Leslie on the heels of that. On the European, is just a little bit farther off towards the west rather than going north a little bit faster. So overall, here's what we're talking about, guys. For the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, nothing is going to develop quickly, okay? We just simply have to take a watch and wait approach, all right? Rainmaker, absolutely, but this wraps up in anything, that's still down the road. It's just simply still in the weeds. The models don't have a great handle on it. For the Central Atlantic, again, two strong hurricanes. Kirk stays not a white, but away, and then Leslie needs watching, okay? And then for the Western Atlantic, how close could Leslie get to the Eastern Caribbean, right? So we just went over those two scenarios for us here. But both Kirk and Leslie look to be very strong hurricanes in general. So back over to the rainfall totals here on the European model over the next 7 days. Again, they're going to be impressive, guys. You can see all of the rain. First of all, the East Pacific storm is going to bring to Mexico. Central America is going to be very wet. The Northwest Caribbean is going to be very wet as well. You can see that maximum of rain here in the East Central Gulf of Mexico on the European model over the next 7 days, then trying to feed into Central and South Florida. So rainfall totals here could be 4 to 6 inches or 100 to 150 millimeters or even higher. I mean, there's a maximum on this map, guys, of 28 inches of rain. That would be located in Mexico. But you can see that there could be some exceptional rainfall totals out of this. Some of that could get into the Northwest Bahamas, certainly for Cuba, the Cayman Islands, close to Jamaica. Again, overall, lower rainfall totals for the Greater and Lesser Antilles in a general sense, but there will still be pockets of very heavy rain possible in these areas as well. Again, we're going to kick up some waves. First of all, notice that northeast wind coming out of the Western Atlantic, and again with Kirk, which could certainly freshen up the swells for Bermuda, potentially even getting some swells into the Bahamas on the exposed Atlantic waters. And you can see that northeast component to the wind that eventually turns east for the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Then obviously, if you look back out to the Gulf of Mexico, whatever this spin develops is going to obviously bring in some higher wave heights. Even places like the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. I know there's already a small craft advisory for the Cayman Islands, but this is going to be something that evolves every day. So for mariners, for boaters, interest in that regard, make sure you check in locally with the marine forecast. That's going to be something that changes very quickly in those areas. Friends, I appreciate you following us across all of social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video like all of my friends did earlier in the forecast, as Selena, as Craig, as Sherry did. I appreciate it. myMediaMundo@gmail.com. As always, you have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comment section below. While you're down there, I do appreciate you liking this video. Drop a comment. Again, it helps the channel, but it also helps me verify those forecasts as well. We cover a large area, so I love to hear from all my friends across these areas. Friends, you do have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back tomorrow with the latest forecast for you right here at Meteo Mundo.